Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AskPiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode 21 of Season 5, or episode 134, if you're counting from the beginning. We stood up to the occasion, played the minutes, and produced a famous victory over Port Adelaide in Adelaide to now give ourselves a 2-game gap on top of the ladder and well and truly set ourselves up for a monumental few weeks to end the season. We spent plenty of time on that power win, including lots of first-hand recounts from two of our very own, and of course on AskPiesNation. Plus, we chat VFL and speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner. I'll start with you, Marcus Callahan. Welcome. Great
you,
from Seat 1A to watch that win on Saturday. Just an incredible feat for our boys again.
It was incredible, Nick. It was one of those wins that makes you truly, truly believe if you didn't already. But I'm going to take a back seat this episode and let two other very, very energised individuals on this podcast do a lot of the talking, because they have the stories. They were there on the ground and we want to hear it first. So,
yeah, they're pumped up, and you and I, Marcus, we're just going to take a nice step back and let these two gentlemen sort it out. Luke Humphries, Jack Dugan, fresh off a trip from Adelaide, boys. Welcome. Great to see you back in one piece.
Well, we only just made it back, I think. Jack's struggling today a little bit. But, it was one of those weekends that'll stick in the memory bank for a long time. It was an incredible weekend from when we got there till the game, and then a few celebratory drinks on Saturday night as well, Jack. So
yeah, it was, Nico. It was for sure. Yeah, g'day, listeners. If you can't tell already, my voice is absolutely cactus, because I reckon I'll let probably half of Adelaide know. But it's actually not that big. I'll probably let the whole of Adelaide know that who won on Saturday night. And yeah, took great pleasure in taking the mickey out of a few Port supporters. So yeah, very big weekend in general.
I don't know why you've got no voice. We're early hours of Sunday morning. The streets are dead. And Jack's yelling, "Go Pies! Go Pies!" Random sitting at the bus stop. Go Pies! It was an awesome night. And one of the best. Well, we've had some epic wins in the last 12 to 18 months, and I think we should really sort of be grateful and make the most of what's going on without the Premiership to come with it yet. Not to go early on that one, but just really savour what has been happening in the past 12 to 18 months.
Well, we'll get to the specifics of the game, what this means for our season, and of course everything else that we do on the pod. But I want to get a proper summary of your boys' weekend, because it is a unique experience, and getting the chance to watch the Pies overseas, I was going to say, interstate.
Pretty much is overseas.
different breed.
Yeah, that is very true. To watch them interstates, a fantastic opportunity, and that's good enough as it is. But to see such a highly anticipated clash as this one was, it's almost once in a lifetime. So talk us through it, boys, from start to finish, what it was like sitting there at Adelaide Oval and watching us get the win in that style.
Well, I was on, because my sister's a flight attendant, so we had the little
very good
discounted flights, but we're on standby. So I was sort of nervous on the Friday just to get there, and sort of the same on the Sunday coming back. So, yeah, got there on the Friday, and then, headed out for a few drinks, and I think, did we run into each other on the Friday?
No, thank God. I had first night fever.
we were doing the Amazing Race. I'm here now, and couldn't get me. But, so headed out on the Friday night, had a good night, and then the Saturday sort of went to the SANFL. By the time we got there, it started bucketing down. We actually seen Bo McCreary out there. That was at Glenelg. Came back, a few quiet drinks at the casino, and then straight to the Adelaide Oval. And then it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock by the time we got there, and it just bucketed down. Got the ponchos, stayed undercover until...
Because you're on the hill, weren't you?
Yeah, on the hill. Yeah. So wanted to get a good spot, but also didn't want to get soaking wet. So and then about 20 minutes before the game, the rain stopped, and got out there for the Never Tear Us Apart. That was... We both spoke about that. That was a really nice moment, and something I always wanted to go to Adelaide for the Collingwood-Port Adelaide game. And then, the game told itself after that.
Yeah, pretty similar, Nico. I rolled in about Friday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock to Adelaide, sort of got ourselves sorted, and about 5 or 6 o'clock head out for dinner. The whole trip really went really smoothly. I was really happy with how everything went. One thing I will say though is went out for dinner on Friday night to the Strathmore Hotel.
Tarrant?
You have to. It is a Tarrant, right?
There we go. Yep.
Got a steak as you do. I thought, treat yourself. You're not often interstate treat.
Yeah, treat yourself
got a
steak,
steak
yep.
as opposed to a palmy is what it's called over there. But anyway,
What's that?
go out to order the steak, and the guy goes, I go, I have a steak, medium rare. He goes, oh, nah, you actually cook it yourself? And I was like, oh, yeah, righto, it's something different. And I saw a few others getting brought out. It's just the steak, and it comes on this really hot rock or something. Anyway, we had about 8 or 9 people at our table when we ordered dinner. I was the last one to get my meal, and I had to bloody cook it all. The whole thing. So I had to sat there for the next 20 minutes still cooking my steak. So that was an absolute Tarrant. That was the only blemish of the whole weekend. And then, went out after I cooked my own steak and had the case of the first night fever. We, carried on. I actually pulled up stumps the earliest in my group, and I still probably felt the worst the next morning. And very similar day to Luke, except we didn't get along to the footy, just sort of bit of wandering, bit of sightseeing in Adelaide. Not a hell of a lot.
What did you see, mate?
It's really good. Fucking
A pub?
Rundale Mall, a few pubs that I didn't see the
They
last
got
time.
good vinyl record stores. I managed to snare a few sort of ones that you can't buy or find online. So
What did you go with, Lukey?
I had it was Eminem Infinite, his
nice.
first ever album, so limited edition. The guy said to me, he said, we get this once, probably once a year, and it goes straight away. I was just there, and I'm massive.
Right time, yeah,
I'm a
right.
massive Eminem fan, so that was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is here. I got a couple other ones, as well. RZA, before the Wu-Tang Clan, it was Prince Rakim, so I snared that record, and then another one as well. So yeah,
So that was
Few
15
hip-hop
minutes
numbers.
of your journey.
That was it. And then met up with Lukey at the casino, and at the time that I met him, he was having a nice little win there on the roulette
Gamble
table.
responsibly.
Gamble
Number
responsibly.
14.
gamble responsibly. But then after you left me, it was Nick Dacos that got me
Oh, right.
a
Okay.
couple dollars. So I'll thank him when I meet him eventually. But yeah, so it was a good start to the night, and then obviously we got to the game, and it was one of those nights, one of the best nights I've ever had at the footy. And I said last year when Jamie Elliott kicked that winner against Essendon that was the best game I've ever been to. Well, this comes bloody close to it. And I think just for the pure fact it was different because we're sort of the hunted, we're the outnumbered. And Adelaide Oval, great ground to watch footy at, something different. Standing on the hill, lot of hooligans out there.
Awesome.
But it was packed. Like when that the first siren went to start the game, the walkway, people just going everywhere. Sorry, I've just hit the mic. People just going everywhere. You couldn't move. It sort of cleared up as the game went on, but it was just, you didn't want to leave to go get a beer or go to the toilet because you thought, I'm not going to get my spot back on the hill here. And you sort of had to work out, not be behind the tallest bloke out there, and so you can still see what's going on.
It's funny you say that. When I was watching, I was like, I've never seen Adelaide Oval this packed on the telecast. And I was like, how do they actually approximate the number of people standing? Because with seats, it's quite straightforward. But with people standing, did you guys wonder how they... It sounds like it was sardines in there, at least for the first half. So how do they work that
Just
out?
my little Tarrant, these couple of girls, they cook butter chicken there at the Adelaide Oval, and these couple of girls get these big buckets of butter chicken. They had about 2 bites of it and then left it on the ground next to my foot. So then during the game, my foot went straight to butter chicken.
And it's raining. Doesn't help. No, that's nice, boys. Great to hear that you had such an awesome experience there. We'll keep touching on it throughout the episode, that's for sure. Let's go straight into it, though. We'll start with the part that caught your eye. There would have been so many to choose from, I think, from Saturday night, and I'm sure there are a couple of obvious ones. But, Jack, we'll begin with the 2 boys, of course, that were there. Jack, let's go.
Yeah, Nathan Murphy's the pilot that caught my eye this week, Nico. Just the 11 disposals, but the value of Murph, as always, comes in the 1%ers, 16 1%ers, a career high. It's a game that's been sort of highly touted by the media, and even Craig McRae as his standout game of his career, in his 50th game, which I think is probably fair considering the occasion and considering how the game panned out. But we've been saying for weeks on the potty now for ages just how important he is for this side. Craig McRae again speaks about this amazing will to win, and make an impact on every contest. And you really get the sense that Nathan Murphy is the living embodiment of that. Just the way he goes about his footy week in, week out. There's a moment late in the game there where he had absolutely no right. I think it was Finlayson, but it could have been Charlie Dixon. Luke, it was down your end, so you might be able to clarify. But they were on the lead, the Port Adelaide full forward, and Murphy had to close like a 20-25 metre gap. And he had absolutely no right to get there. He had to make a split-second decision to leave his man, get the ball out of the bounds, and that really set the standard for the next 2.5 minutes of us just killing the ball and saving the game. So, I can't sing Murph's praises high enough, and it was great to watch him perform on the big stage.
Lovely. He had 4 coaches' votes as well.
We spoke about it on Saturday night. It felt like he'd done that all night. It was just he had no right to get to half the contest he got to, and he still managed to do that. So, talk about another man who had no right to get to the contest he did. Still sideboard him. He's the player that caught my eye. That play right at the end. That I'd given up when Horn Francis kicked it in. I don't know who was going to mark it.
Kane Farrell.
And that was it for me. I was like, we're done, because he'll kick it. And somehow still got there. But I thought just from the first bounce, it was his kind of game, the wet weather, scrubby, sort of about who wants it more, just throw it on the boot, get it going forward. And I thought Steele had a real impact early in the game and sort of kept going throughout the 4 quarters, and then just in that last quarter went to another level again. And it's exactly why he's a part of our side.
Before we move on, I want to touch on him a bit more just because he was going to be my main part of call. I've got backups, don't worry. So you mentioned that last play because he does spoil the ball, but if you actually look at the replay, it's about to bounce back up into the Port Adelaide player's hands, and he manages just to get a fingertip onto it to bring it back to ground a second time, and then once he does, he's aware enough to quickly just kick it off the ground, get it out of the area, and that was what won us the game in the end in those last few seconds. The first goal we kicked in the final term, just that standing start, left boot, beautiful, straight through to big six, and that was enough really to get us going. You knew once he had kicked that, we were going to start.
When he kicked that, we're on here. And that was about 30, 40 seconds into the quarter. 100%. So, and it was 17 points, I think, at 3/4 time. And you kicked that straight away. It's 11 points. And you're like, you're playing Collingwood, so it's game on.
You're right. It was his type of game. And I felt particularly in that first term when Dacos was getting shut out, the guy was pretty quiet, Mitchell wasn't having his influence. It was him and Pendles that were really able to take the mantle and produce such a great first quarter that it got us going and kept us in the game. We led at 3 at the first quarter when at times we probably shouldn't have been anywhere close to leading at quarter time. So, awesome effort from Steele. Wanted to shout him out again. Game 302 for him, of course. We'll just keep counting that up. But, awesome from Steele. Marcus?
Just last point on that. If it was dry where the footy and Farrell assumedly takes that and doesn't kind of spill it, is it a mark and Steele's obstructed? Because I thought that the weather conditions for that moment actually played into our hands where he didn't probably have as great a control on that first touch. Steele, quick reaction, amazing play, gets a fingernail in there. It's enough to disrupt the marking contest. But just did anyone say that
Good
differently?
Point. There's a part of me that
huge
thought
decision.
in that second, it's like, they're going to pay this, aren't they? But kept going, and when you look at the replay back and you have a bit more time to actually assess it, it probably makes a difference with the conditions at the time. If it's dry and he gets a bit more of a grip on that football, then no doubt that's probably going to be a free against.
Look, last 5 minutes of the game, I have not seen a home and away game this season umpired the way that was on the weekend for the whole 4 quarters. And it was amazing because you just got to see the two teams go for it without it being like a netball game. And maybe other than the deliberates, of course.
That's what I was saying. That's the only thing that annoyed me throughout the night was that there was one, I can't remember who socked it, it was a Collingwood player, but he socked it to actually keep the ball in. So it was going out and he's socked it forward to keep it in.
Dake's got stiff on one.
And then it's gone down the field and gone out. And Jimmy Bartell said it last week on one of the footy shows that every time they're soccering off the ground, it's being paid for insufficient intent, no matter what. So,
but it's wet weather footy.
You're trying to get yardage, as they call it. Yeah,
but I took that into account. I tried to keep an eye on that on Saturday night, and I was like, every time it was soccered, they don't care about the weather. You're not keeping it in. So
anyway, I thought that was a big moment there, Nick. So I just wanted to shine a light on Steele's defensive play. It was huge. The play that caught my eye was Bo McCreary, and in particular, that moment where he leaves Ryan Burton for absolute dead in the last. And I think that this guy is realising his true potential round by round. But he's got so much upside as far as I'm concerned. His size, his aggression, his field kicking's unbelievable, particularly when he's in space. But to sum that moment up, not hit that kick to Jamie Elliott, because it would have been spoiled by Trent McKenzie, and then to double back and put it on an absolute platter for Bobby Hill like that. Hearing the roar of the crowd through the TV for that seemed like the loudest cheer. I don't know if it's because everyone could see it going through, but that play was just, you knew we could not be stopped from that point onwards. So huge by Bo, and I think he signs on today as well, Nico.
Yes,
so.
one of our many
others.
re-signings. Amazing what happens after a big win like that. Everyone wants to get involved. But yeah, I agree. David King mentioned it on First Crack a little bit last night, just about the confidence he's had, and yeah, he's adding more strings to his bow, as you mentioned, with his... there you go. There's a bit of strings to his bow. Get it? Get it? No? All right. Yeah, but his ability to be efficient with the ball in hand, it's not about him kicking 2 or 3 goals anymore. He's not that type of forward. So along with his brilliant...
But he will become one.
He will, I'm sure.
It's not about him getting 20, supposedly, but I think he's only had 10 or 11, 10 and a goal. So stats-wise, it doesn't look like a huge game, but he was probably number 2 for Pie that caught my eye. Just some of his efforts on Saturday night were just unbelievable, and that play summed it up.
Well, you guys have mentioned some great efforts, but I'm going to go with the obvious here for the Pie that caught my eye, because we don't win the game without him. It's as simple as that. Jamie Elliott.
I missed that.
Insane. Kicked these 3 goals. It probably was going to be 4 if he didn't let one off to Taylor Adams, which was a nice little moment just on its own too. But it was efficient when he did touch the ball. He had 8 score involvements, 7 contested possessions, and had, of course, 4 marks, one of those being the ones that helped us seal that famous victory. I ask you boys, he's got 28 goals now for the season, which is the same amount that he had last year. His most in a campaign is 35, and he achieved that one back in 2015. And his last month, we've already spoken about it on the podcast, and just how critical that's been to us finding ways to win, and his ability to kick not just 1 or 2 here or there, but multiple goals at such important times in games. You come back into a team with, Mychek that's gone in and out but has been able to return. McStay's just come back into the fold. And a forward-line structure that we haven't still been able to really work out what suits best for us. For him to come in and have this influence is just next level. This was a player that we didn't think we were going to ever see pull on a black and white jumper again for multiple reasons, many times throughout his career. But he has come back fitter and stronger every single time, and he's playing, I think, the best football that he has been playing ever in his career. Yes, he's not leaping high to take incredible grabs, and he might not be as silky around the goal, but believe me, his influence is probably right up there with what Nick Dacos is doing for us, what Darcy Moore is doing for us. He is right now one of our top 3 or 4 most valuable players right now. So Jamie Elliott, it just culminated with him kicking that goal, but it was everything else he did on that Saturday night. So yeah, he deserves all the credit that comes to him. I thought he was exceptional.
All Australian?
Oof. Don't know if he's
now
reaching
that
all Australian.
Rankin's pinged a hammy and is out for the year, he seemed like a walk-up start throughout the middle of the season, but it's gone cold. Toby Green will probably get a look in, but he's in the conversation based on his form.
Still 5 more weeks. If he has another big 5 weeks to come,
he'd have to kick. I as much as I'd love to see him in there,
have to kick 40 for the year.
He'd have to at least kick 40 for the year. I agree. Yeah, but
12 more.
In saying that, it's definitely not out of
playing Carlton and Essendon, so he loves those teams.
That is very true. So it's definitely
and happy 1 year anniversary to the winner against Essendon.
Where's the cake?
He's had a nice week, hasn't he? You guys have mentioned most of the players that stood up in the key moments of that game. I want to ask about Nick Dacos and the tag that was given to him by Willem Drew. Now, Drew's game was pretty decent himself. He had 16 tackles in the end, so he was definitely impactful for Port. But I think when the power started to let him loose a little bit, what the right way to put this is, he wasn't relied upon, and I don't think he's ever been relied upon in this team. As good as he has been and as freakish as he can be in the midfield and around goal, it allowed others to really stand up, and that's where we saw Sidebottom and Pendlebury and Taylor Adams have massive impacts. But I still think he had a very serviceable game in the end, Nick Dacos, and was able to contribute in different ways. So still finished with 25 touches, went on to kick a very important goal in that second half, still had 20 pressure acts, 11 contested possessions, and he still had 9 clearances. These are stats to me that are just as important as him having 36 touches at 90%. It wasn't a game where he was going to be efficient. It wasn't a game where he was going to be allowed free space. And players like Pendlebury and Sidebottom understood that position and were able to help him in different ways by getting their own football. But I think Nick Dacos will take a lot of learning lessons out of a game like that. It's going to make him a better footballer as a result. In saying that, he still had 25-1, and on paper, that's an incredible performance.
Yeah, absolutely, it is, Nico. And it just that's clearly the best tag we've seen so far. Nick Dacos have in his short career, and he still had 25-1. So if that's what the best that the competition's got to offer, then I think Nick will still be feeling very comfortable, and he could still feel like probably he could improve on Saturday night's game. As opposed to a Sydney where I thought they tried to get in his head a little bit with the carry on and the nonsense that was going on there. I felt like Port Adelaide just bullied him in terms of, and I thought they were on the night. They were way more ferocious at the contest than us. It was an area in the game where they absolutely dominated us. We had to find a different way to win. Not that we've been winning out of centre clearance every week, but it was definitely a period of the game where Port it seemed like every loose ball that was there to be won, they were first over it. And that's his name, Farrell, that was tagging him. Is it Kane Farrell? Yeah, Kane.
Towards the end,
yeah. Farrell. They were just every contest that he was at. That was a throw up or a centre bounce. It was just physical from everyone. Even Ollie Wines running past would just let him know that he was there. And I think
Dan Houston
that's
as well.
that's probably the way to go about it if you are going to go about it. Not so much with the bravado and whatnot. Just sort of really trying to sit in his back pocket. But yeah. Yeah, 25-1, and it was the best tag we've seen so far. So yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be your game every game, and
no.
We can't expect it's always going to be Nick's, but he made the moment count when he got the opportunity, and
so did I. By the way, just let all of the Port supporters know how good he was there.
Any beers just accidentally.
No beers at the footy. That was surprise. It was kept it.
Well, you couldn't. I only had a couple at the footy too because the line. It was just humongous lines, and it was kind of like the game was so engrossing that you just didn't want to leave.
Look away.
And also, if you're having a few drinks, then you got to go to the toilet as well. So it was like the game was just so engrossing. Honestly, one of the best games I've ever seen live that I just didn't want to sort of take my eyes off it. So, but yeah, Nick, he wasn't as influential, wasn't as impactful, but still made the moment. And 25 disposals. I can't even get that playing resis.
Yeah, I think we've heard numerous times this year other players and even Nick himself say that when a tag comes, they just embrace it. I know he didn't look like he was having a good time, and who would when you literally have no time at all to make a decision when you're used to having space. So ultimately, our senior heads were able to really take a stranglehold on this game. And if this happens in a final and Pendles and Steele can get into motion, they both looked a cut above any of our other midfielders. And Tay wasn't far behind. Obviously, Tommy Mitchell going out of the game allowed for that. But I think the fact that Nick is he's such a hard runner and such a hard worker, he is going to get into the game at some point. De Goey was clearly crook, no doubt about it. But if this happens in a prelim or a grand final, what I didn't understand was why Ken Hinkley actually sent Willem Drew to De Goey, I think in the last term.
Yes, he did.
Dakes did push forward, but it worked all games. So if Ken Hinkley, what do you do? This was working beautifully for you, and then Dakes was actually able to exert himself somewhat in the final term.
You're right, and from a Collingwood point of view, it wouldn't make sense for him to do that. I think on the call they said that they had believed, Hinkley may have been thinking that the guy was going to be more influential in the final term, particularly because he had a quiet game up until then. He was someone that could break it
a bet
for him, which is fine, and you're happy to have that view. But if you nullify Dacos enough, then it's going to force others to step up. And it was, as you said, working beforehand, and I didn't see why they would not have continued to do it.
I was so relieved when I saw it. Yeah. I was just like, thank God he can just have a bit of time to himself.
So it was Willem Drew who was tagged. I said Kane Farrell before. Yeah. So yeah, that was the one I should have said before. He, for mine, was all over him for most of the game.
And then what about Port subbing Lycett off in that last term? I found that just as bizarre because it allowed us to get on top in the clearances, especially with no Mitchell on the ground.
Was that a tactical?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But then Dixon did his knee halfway through the last, and that gave us a bit of an edge very deep into that fourth term when everyone was just out on their knees. So it was crazy that last 10 minutes.
Go on.
No, nothing. I'm good, mate.
Keep hitting this. Forward line structure is what I want to talk about next because McStay, we know that he came back in a couple of weeks ago, was able to get us rolling a little bit in that first term. He finished with 2 goals. So did Brodie Myercheck. Bobby Hill, of course, we know popping up to kick that crucial one to tie the scores in the final term. I thought McStay was very serviceable, and I think it proved that it can work with him as the focal point, and Myercheck rolling around as that second tall forward. It had some plays interchanged throughout the game in terms of the smaller forwards, but keen to get your thoughts on how it looked against a quality side like Port Adelaide, and if this is the 6 or 7 that we are pretty happy to roll with for the rest of the campaign, or if there's still changes to come.
Well, I think that was the 24 that we should roll with for the rest of the campaign. I think that, if I was to guess my best 24 players, everyone fit and all things equal, that was the 24 I'd be taking into September, Nico. Maybe 1 or 2 changes in the big bloke department, but that was as solid as Collingwood side I've seen on paper probably all year, I reckon.
It's our most experienced team in history.
Wow, really?
In history?
In terms of total games played.
Wow. Okay.
3,227. Thanks.
2 of 4 300 gamers playing helps, doesn't it?
Thanks to AFL Central for that. So, Geelong won the flag last year with their most experienced side ever. So,
one thing I wanted to
position to be in.
Sorry, Lukey. One thing I wanted to talk about regarding the forward line connect. Obviously, it was terrible conditions. I thought Bruzzy and Crispy were putting in some beautiful balls inside 50, which created scores, but do we still need a few more weeks to see the best of Checkers and McStay to try and gel together before finals, boys? Or do we think there was a step forward on the weekend? I know this has been a big talking point while McStay was out, so now he's back in. I think we should dissect.
It was an interesting, even just the way they set up at centre bounce. Jamie Elliott was playing as the deepest forward. So if the ball's coming in there quick, I don't think it's going to Myercheck or Dan McStay. It's going to Jamie Elliott, who hopefully would be on a lead, taking a mark 30 out directly in front. But yeah, so that was strange. But then when the game was unfolding, it was Dan McStay and Myercheck who were sort of setting up at the top of the square. I thought on the night it worked really well, considering conditions as well. Where absolutely it was a sloppy, wet and cold night. You could see the dragons steam coming off their mouth. But yeah, it was I thought the Dan McStay, Brodie Myercheck, and good to see Brodie Myercheck after missing some footy come back in and just slot in seamlessly, as we know he can.
As we know he would,
So that was good. I thought that's your forward line setup right there, but little dynamic changes maybe.
Well, 9 individual goal kickers in the end on Saturday night, so it just goes to show again it's not like we rely on 1 or 2 players to kick 4 or 5, even though that's sort of how it ended up turning out with Jamie Elliott. But I think this is something that you've got to persist with. Hopefully, touch wood with the injuries persisting or allowing, it gives us that opportunity to try this out for the next few weeks against some pretty strong opposition as well. I'm not counting Carlton in that, but I mean your Geelongs and your Brisbanes. If it's something that can be sustained and something that can be consistently worked throughout the final stages of the home and away campaign, then absolutely that's what we can run with in finals.
Lukey, do you think that more time is needed for the 2 big fellas to click, or were they well on the way to that?
Well, McStay impressed me the most that he has all year. I know he hasn't played a lot of games, but just that, I think it was third quarter, he took a really big mark, and I was like, if we can just get him to do that a few more times throughout the game, he's going to be huge for us. But yeah, I thought we're never going to have a correct answer, I don't think, for this question. It's always going to be a bit of a mix and a match. And you said 9 individual goal kickers. We're always going to be popping up everywhere, and that's how it's going to be, sort of Bobby Hills, Jamie Elliott's, and then you've got the Myerchecks, McStay, Cox floating in there. It was a struggle for him on Saturday night with the weather, I thought, but on a drier day, he's going to be a lot more impactful and influential in that forward line if he's hopefully in that best 22, 23. So it's going to be something we're just going to have to keep working on, and obviously, like you said, with the better sides coming up, a real good opportunity now with a couple game head start on everyone to really test a few more things.
But even when you go back and look at some of the games where we've just sat back and gone, how good was that? I mean, talk about round 2 against Port, the game against Gold Coast a few weeks ago, getting 9, 10, 11 goal scorers in those games. So maybe we're not set up for a Dan McStay to kick 5 goals and 4 goals every week. Maybe that's just not the way our best footy looks moving forward. So yeah, just leave it how it is, and keep letting the goal scoring get shared around. Yeah,
spot on. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I think McStay being in there just opens it up so much for everyone else. So it's not going to be, McStay didn't kick 3, 4 today, so why is he in there? But if you take him out, then Billy's not getting on the end of a few, Bobby's not getting on the end of a few, my check is taking the number 1, number 2 best defender, and then he can't get on the end of a few sometimes. So I think McStay just offers that, and that's the best attribute he's bringing to us right now. And like for some people, it's not going to be enough, but for me, when we're winning the way we are, and like you said, we're getting individual goal kickers everywhere, then that's why I want him in the side.
We've had 11 players this year that have kicked 10 or more goals. 4 of them have kicked 20 or more goals. So they're the signs of a premiership forward line working in tandem. Yeah, of course, there's some that work with having a key forward or two. We saw Geelong last year being a prime example. But it just goes to show that unreliability on 1 or 2 people, I think that's going to work wonders, not just for this year, but long term. This is going to be so important.
No doubt. And I think that had McStay played more footy this season, that stat would it be, the number of players to kick 20 goals would likely be higher. And I think Coxie's well on his way too. Coming back to Mason Cox, obviously goes under the microscope, quiet game, wet weather, as you said, Lukey. How do we feel about persisting with him now that we know, I think pretty much all of our games for the rest of the season, including finals, will be in Melbourne, and most of those games played at the MCG. Maybe bar Marvel for one.
Brisbane.
Against Brizzy. Yeah, go figure.
Don't even bring that
up. So I personally think keep him in unless Billy Frampton's playing out of his skin in the VFL, which he did on the weekend. We'll get to that later, Nico.
Nice.
But I just wanted to, I think it'd be a knee-jerk reaction, as we've said before, with the bigs, when they perhaps have a quiet game or two. And so where do we stand on Mason Cox in this side?
I agree with you. I think this is not something you just take him out for after one ordinary game. The conditions didn't suit, and yes, that can be a bit of a cop-out, but there have been so many games this season where his impact has been second to none, and it's almost won us games off his own bat at times, whether it's going up forward to kick goals or being a force in the ruck. I think he does still need to work on his ruck craft, being that second ruck, and it's a concern I've had from the start of the season, and I know there have been moments in games where he's been able to show to us that the potential is there for him to be dominant in that area of the ground. But I think we've seen more than enough from him this season to suggest that he's not someone you can drop for one bad game. I can understand the discussion because spots are on the line. There's players in the VFL that are really keen to get into that senior team. But unless this is something that happens for 3 or 4 weeks in the lead up to finals, I wouldn't be looking to move anything.
Well, I'm pretty much like this view of yours that this is our best side in there right now, and unless injuries kind of happen, I'm not taking anyone out, anyone in. I think Cox, it's not gonna work for him on a wet night in Adelaide. So, but in Melbourne, on hopefully a dry night, dry day, he'll flourish, and he'll have a few big games coming up. He loves the big stage, so yeah, I won't be taking.
In saying that though, I think if this is something that does happen for 2 or 3 weeks straight in the lead up to finals, the question would become a bit more realistic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the only guy that you can bring in, except for Mason, who I'm not dropping either, but is Billy Frampton. I think the beauty of Billy Frampton we've spoken about before is that if you lose someone down back, he's played key back plenty of times this year, so it's a position you feel comfortable him going to fill down there. Do you feel as comfortable sending Mason Cox back to try and run after a Jeremy Cameron or something like that? Probably not.
No.
But conversely, who offers the better forward target, Mason Cox or Billy Frampton? I think we got to look at that last week against Freo. It was Mason, so they sort of cancel each other out in different facets. So it's going to come down to Mason had a quiet game in wet conditions. It's going to come down to, Nico, as you said, if we're still having the same conversation in sort of 2 to 3 weeks, then we can probably look at that. But right now, I think it's working very well.
Last week against the Dockers, second highest career total of hit-outs in a game he had. So one bad week for him. I know that the spot's in jeopardy, but hard to say that he's someone that you move pretty easily.
I think he's career high contested marks this year, Coxie. So
there you go.
I don't know if that's accurate. I think I might have read that today somewhere. But it's just, I think a lot of his work is not going sort of, it's kind of flying under the radar compared to, he hasn't had the big game. So let's get him out. But he's actually doing a lot of work elsewhere around the ground.
What does a win like this do for, I guess, not only the rest of the season, but for our premiership hopes? Because it's an extraordinary performance. We can't take away from how important that is. But do you feel like this is what we need to just get a bit more of a spring in our step and potentially really put ourselves to a point where we cannot be stopped?
Well, I said last week the season kind of got to a bit of a lull with a couple of easier games, easier wins, and this was where the season was really going to get cracking. And it honestly did. That was a final. That was as good as a game of footy you'll go to or watch on TV. And I think it just gave, even though we're on top of the ladder and have had some great wins against great opposition this year, that was the type of game that probably gives supporters the belief, but also the players and coaches the belief that, no, we are the best in it right now, and you're going to have to beat us to get us. So, it really does get going now, and I'm really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, Nico, it's still a long way to go.
Yeah,
for September.
I
don't know. I'd like to. It was good. But as I said, Port. Let's not take anything away from Port. I don't. It's not a Port Adelaide podcast, but they were exceptional on Saturday night. They were probably the better side for 3 quarters. Really, they were first to the footy. They made us look a bit silly a few times, and to our credit, we were able to stick with them long enough that the typical Collingwood came over the top in the last quarter. But it was exciting to see in those conditions. We say it feels like a final. I feel like that term gets thrown up every time there's a big game, but this really did feel like a final.
No doubt. It was different.
It felt that boo when we ran onto the ground. Not often as a Collingwood supporter you probably get a sense of what a GWS supporter feels like, but I felt like a GWS supporter there. Felt like I was, no matter how loud I yelled or whatever, no one was going to hear me over that. And it was unbelievable night to be at. Super lucky. But far out. I don't know, Nico. We've got Carlton this week, and then we still have to play Geelong and Brisbane. I don't know I'm not talking premierships just yet.
What about you, Marcus? What do you think that does for our season?
I think it gives us huge affirmation that we can go the whole way, purely because I don't think we'll now need to travel again. I think that is just an enormous advantage. We can get back to the Magpie Army being that extra man, all bar Brisbane, but we'll probably have more Collingwood supporters and Brisbane supporters at Marvel. So, look, I'm not saying it means that we win the minor premiership, but I think it absolutely puts us in the box seat. And even though we have dropped games to Brizzy and Melbourne, ultimately we are now the ones to chase. And I think Fly will just do such a good job of getting the players to embrace that and sit with that rather than being scared by that, if you know what I mean. And being that far clear. I can't remember too many seasons where we have got one hand on the minor premiership at the present, and to go into your last month of footy knowing that you really can propel further away from second place is a pretty luxurious position to be in. So I think it was a huge win in the context of the season.
Yeah, spot on. Anything else to add from your lovely trip to Adelaide on the weekend, boys, before we move on?
I don't know if you've seen the footage of the cheer squad and that after the game, but that we were in the ground still like 45 minutes after the game ended, walking all the way around the ground.
For safety reasons?
They had the drums banging and the chant going. It was insane. Like, it's happened in Melbourne, and obviously you've been in a state for games, but I don't know, this was just as crazy as I've ever seen it. It was generally like we did win the flag, and then leaving the ground, going over the bridge and then through the train station. Like, I turned back and it was just an army coming, singing the song, chanting. It was just
beautiful.
Adelaide was just alive on Saturday night. And it was one of the best nights I'll ever have at the footy.
Yeah, Lukey's already highlighted the carry on that I was going off with Nico.
And then Jack turns up, he's like, "Go, boys!"
Yeah,
Wish someone recorded it.
Nothing from Dukes' diary.
I was hoping for an instalment, but no, couldn't get
I
anything.
didn't want us to step to the people of my gone on Saturday morning, Nico. It was pretty average, but no, Luke's right. Those I've had a few, like, Gold Coast interstate. There was more Collingwood supporters there than there was Gold Coast supporters, and it's Queensland, New South Wales, they're rugby states. But this is my first time playing an Adelaide team and walking away victorious. And gee, it feels different. It feels so much better. You've highlighted it before, Lukey, how much different those interstate wins feel. And this, it was everything you said and more. It was so good. And again, extremely fortunate to go. I had a really good weekend, and it was great to catch up with Luke and go over there with a good mate of mine and his mum.
Oh,
we copped a few. You're from
you get
Nation.
recognised, did you?
A few head wobbles, a few handshakes, introductions, but
nice.
Thanks to everyone who came and said hello.
Shout outs?
Yeah,
I think it's
anyone that you remember?
Fair.
Too many to.
Go on.
There was this one guy I want to give a shout out at the pub. He was 90. I can't remember his name. I want to say it was like Bill or Bob or something like that. 94 years old, Nico. Mm-hmm. Mad Collingwood supporter, goes to every Collingwood game in Adelaide.
Travelled
in Adelaide, and he was. He was Adelaide,
he's from South Australia.
Adelaide, yeah. And we sort of got chatting to him for a bit, blah, 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 sort of walking by. Some guy, I think you might have had a few too many, who was pumping him up. This bloke's 94 and felt good on you, mate. anyway, what the most amazing part about that was I looked at my clock and it was 1:30 in the morning. I thought, Bill, what are you doing out of bed, mate? You're 94, go home. But yeah, shout out to him. Like, that was an amazing effort.
Oh, he was loving it.
Clearly, we'd won the flag.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like that Saturday night. Like, we were out all hours of the night, and it was just like everywhere you went, there was Collingwood scarves, Collingwood beanies.
Yeah,
like,
nice.
you were just chatting to people all night because you just kept running into other Collingwood supporters.
Was there any Port supporters at the pubs after the game, or were they all too
not
sour?
Really. Oh yeah, there was one that we made friends with for 5 minutes that didn't last too long.
Jack asked a very serious question to him.
Go on.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Well, I said early on in the night, I said to, and mind you, like, we hadn't been drinking at the footy, so it's not like I've carried in like a drunken idiot, like carrying on, blah, blah, blah. But I said, I'd really be keen if we get the chance to sit down with a Port supporter, talk about the game, to ask about the prison bar thing. Like, we were thinking, surely this is their biggest game of the year outside of Showdown, and there's prison bars everywhere. The black and white team from Melbourne's coming in. Surely you want to wear as much blue as you can to separate yourselves from this team that's coming to play you. Anyway, I sort of got chatting to this guy, and yeah, he wasn't too stoked with it in the end, was he, Luke? He was fairly inappropriate. But Luke ate all his chips as well, so he was probably more
angry at
dirty
our
on that.
table because we didn't steal them, just were eating his chips, and then Jack come over with the question, and then it got very heated, very
Jesus.
serious, very quickly.
We weren't going to make it to the game, by the sounds.
Well, this was after
this
the
is
game,
post-game,
so he was
God.
copping already upset from the game. So
I love that you looked in between the eyes and asked that question when we'd just beaten them. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I was curious. I just wanted to know why.
and he was.
You also won.
It was all in good spirit, the
Yeah, I
question
was
being asked,
trying
and
not
then,
to-
and then it just turned really quickly. And we're like, oh, we got to get rid of this guy somehow, and
Yeah,
we ended
yeah.
up
That
getting
was
rid of him.
interesting.
So.
Oh, that's gold. Love it, boys. Let's get to our votes on the back of that. Fan votes are coming in thick and fast, thanks to everyone who has. Jamie Elliott, I can tell you now, he's the clear runaway at the moment. Shout out as well to the likes of Steele. Nathan Murphy's also come in for quite a few votes. Scott Pendlebury and even Nick Dacos has still managed to find his way through as well. But what were ours, boys? We'll start with you, Jack.
So giving one to Nathan Murphy for reasons highlighted in the pilot caught my eye, who was huge. Gave 2 to Taylor Adams, and Marcus made a good point about when Tom Mitchell went off, it was really an opportune time for Tay to step up in that last quarter, and he did in game 200. Really, what's the word? Wholesome moment when Jamie Elliott handballed it to him in the top of the goal square. That was really nice. Loved that. And I gave 3 to Jamie Elliott, just a match winner. Lukey.
Yeah, my one vote, same with you. Reasons for Taylor Adams. I thought he was just an absolute bull and continued on his merry way in some really good form at the moment, and really stepped up in a leadership.
Because of us, right?
Exactly right, because of us. 2 votes, Nathan Murphy. We already highlighted, but I think it was 16 1%ers, his career high for him. And got to some absolute spoils and saves that he should not have got to. So never gave up, and copped a whack as well to the chin, and had to keep going after that. And the 3 votes, Jamie Elliott, because he generally did win us the game. He kicked the last 2 goals. So
Hard to go past him when he wins the game for us again, isn't it? 1 vote also goes to Tay for his 200th. I thought in that last term, he, along with some of our other senior leaders, just really took the game by the scruff of the neck and gave us something in the stoppage that we were perhaps lacking in the second and third terms when Zach Butters and Rosie, like, oh my God.
Yeah,
like,
he was huge.
Wow. Like,
Power Pepper, he was a
Couldn't tackle him.
machine.
Could not tackle him.
Even though Braden Maynard, he had the perfect run up on him. I'm like, here we go. He's going to crunch him, and this will be like the moment. Power Pepper brushed him off like he was nothing. I was like, oh, geez, he's
Poor
strong.
Darcy Moore to start the game as well. But, I think that we made the positional switch from maybe Quaino to Bruzzy later in the match, and that was the matchup. So 1 vote to Tate, 2 to Merv playing out of his skin, and 3 to Billy. So same as Lukey, but those guys were outstanding. Nico.
Yeah, we try to be different, but I couldn't go past the votes you guys have just given. 1 to Tay, he had almost 600 metres gained, 9 clearances and 8 inside 50s. Not a bad 200th game for Tay, that is for sure. 2 to Nathan Murphy, it was actually his 50th. Game as well. So shout out to Murph for getting to that milestone after so many injury troubles. For him to have found a spot in this 22 is just awesome, and to play a career best game as well on Saturday night just goes to show how resilient he is. And 3 votes to the match winner, the man we wouldn't be getting the 4 points without, and that's Jamie Elliott. So just superb. We've got still so much more for you after this, including a big edition of Ask Pies Nation. We'll speak to another guest, the crowd competition winner, and chat a bit of VFL before we get to our little preview of how much we're going to beat Carlton by. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Let's get straight into it with Ask Pies Nation, where we are just booming at the moment on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and YouTube. Every single possible social media platform.
Yeah, are we on Threads?
Are we on Threads?
What is
Luke?
Threads?
I think it's dead already.
Is it? All right.
So I didn't bother going on there.
Nah, fair call.
I signed myself up, but it's sort of died away very
Dwindled
quickly,
a little bit.
So, yeah.
That's okay. Everywhere else we're flying. That's the main thing. Ask Pies Nation this week. It was a pretty simple one again, just about our reactions, emotions, where we were during that whole Port Adelaide encounter and what the reaction was once we got past it on the final siren. I'm sure there's plenty of great stories on top of the lovely Adelaide stories you guys just gave before.
Oh, we're all over the world, Nico. It is
Yeah, I know
like
that.
we have won
Yeah.
the Premiership. Some fantastic comments and stories here. I'll start. It's just a photo here I've got. If I
Oh, that's going to be great for
I
an audio,
retweeted
can't
it on Twitter, so if you're on Twitter, but it's DJ Junior P. Is that his, what do you call it, where you do your DJing?
Dex?
I'm too old for this.
Go on.
But he's got the Collingwood game on while he's doing his DJing. I
Beautiful.
love that.
Lovely.
So he's
Very nice.
watching the game from there. Emma Thomas, I travelled to Adelaide by myself and made friends with all the Pies supporters around me. Lost my voice and absolutely worth it. Here's the walk back with the cheer squad, and she's attached a video. So
There you go.
that was what I was talking about a little earlier. Robin Lake, listening to live ABC radio call through AFL app, sitting in the room of our Mission Second Jar.
What?
Southern Burgundy, France. Go Pies.
Oh.
Can't wait for your pod this
What
week.
did you just say?
Been
Luke?
out, Slicky.
We're going
Go
to
there.
get that.
What did
Mission
you-
Second Jar? Is that any...
I don't know where
If
that
there's anyone
is.
that's French listening and is able to give a translation.
I think
for
they've
what
stopped listening.
Southern Burgundy, France.
Okay, there we go. We'll go with that then.
Can't wait for your pod this week, boys.
Oh, well,
So, love that.
who was that from again?
Robin Lake.
So, Robin, when you listen to this episode and you just send us through what...
Robin's probably laughing pretty loud right now.
Yeah, go on.
Marky Funky Bunch at Manchester, England, waiting for the rain to clear before the cricket, and we win. And Aussies retain Ashes 24 hours later. Great result on both counts.
Gee, just a side note, how nice has it been watching all these England sooks from last
Remind me
night
of
in the
a few
Ashes?
Port Adelaide supporters.
Yeah,
on Saturday
exactly
night.
right.
Go the rain.
Paddy's Pies with my son right next to our bench. There was an iPad on the bench with the countdown clock. With 6 seconds left and the kick out from Tay, we were home. Siren jubilation. Go the Pies.
Lovely. That's awesome.
Nooch spent the day building a deck out the back with my chippy son. Heart and soul, proud times watching him do that. And then we drank Melbourne bitter stubbies and settled in to watch a bloody ripper game.
Drink
This
responsibly.
is where we live.
From Liquorland?
Thanks.
Liquorland, that's the best place to get those from, absolutely. Yep.
Sharon Millard, couldn't watch, was in Hebden Bridge, UK, but made my cousin stop from entering a shop as I counted down the last 2 minutes to ensure I got the final score, then came back to another cousin's place and watched the whole game. Wowee.
The best part about watching these overseas is when something like this happens and you're going nuts. Just all the weird looks around you, thinking, what the hell is this person doing? It's the best.
Leah Bassett too, internally screaming in my lounge room so not to wake up my 6-year-old. I'm glad the game didn't end like the picture on the right, and it's Ollie, born a magpie with all his magpie gear on, and he's crying.
Very good.
A very nice picture. Bowie's in Space was at the North Hill at Adelaide Oval. God, us Pies fans made some noise. Final siren was incredible.
Yeah, you guys can speak to that more than us watching it, but yeah, I'm sure they brought plenty of noise on the night.
Coops 18 was having lunch at a mate's cafe in Glasgow, Scotland, with 2 Blues supporters. Got a lot of strange looks when I celebrated Jamie's goal and our win.
Glasgow, there we go. We really are global. It's nice.
Killer 5, North Gambia, 2013 Premiership reunion. Club rooms pumping, but still everyone glued to the TV. Good number of Pies supporters. Bruised thumb from banging the table in delight after Jamie's match winner. High fives and fist pumps all round after Steel Spoil and the siren. Memorable night.
That would be. Not a bad reunion.
Watched in the hotel room on Penang. Was totally dismayed with our ball in hand decision making and being outnumbered At the contest, constantly losing 50-50 pinball. All changed last quarter to the same old. Celebrated with a green curry and a tiger beer.
Penang.
Very unique.
That must be Bali, is it? Tiger beer?
Maybe.
Vietnam.
Potentially.
I don't know where half these places are, Lukey.
Well, here's another one. Peter Caprilis. I was following the game while walking around Pompeii. Lost reception around 3/4 time while hiking up Mount Vesuvius, where I got reception again just after the final siren.
Oh,
Go
wow. What a predicament.
We are literally everywhere, I'm telling you.
Rob King, all the way from Vanuatu on a streaming service. Thanks, ABC Australia. What a game and great fight back. Go Pies.
Yeah, nice. This is awesome. Doesn't matter.
All these people must have to buy plane tickets home very shortly so they can get back to the...
I'll be back for the grand final and
finals.
we won't be able to get tears. Mandy Haldane, tracking the game on the phone while exploring Berlin, dressed in Pie's shirt and cap. Too stressful to concentrate on the sightseeing. Huge relief once the siren went. Makes for another happy week until the next game. Awesome win. Can't wait to watch the recording of the game when we get back to Brisbane.
Nice.
Jeez. Diane, they keep coming. Diane Clifford, listened to the game in our hotel room in Phuket as we couldn't get it on the TV. My hubby and I were very nervous, and it's not quite the same as being able to see the players in action. We watched the highlights online after the game.
I reckon if we got a map and just listen back to all the places we've just mentioned, we just pinpoint all the towns and cities that people have been listening or watching from, it'd be incredible.
It actually is phenomenal. Tim Parran, I was on the hill in Adelaide Oval. Can I just say the banter was brilliant, and once it was all said and done, the Port fans were fantastic.
Is that true?
Go Pies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a few handshakes, like sort of back and forth, subtle comments thrown out throughout the game, but then handshakes at the end, like good game, like as if we'd been out there playing. But yeah, all in good spirit. It's not always the case with some supporters.
Nice.
Simone O'Sullivan, we were there. It was bloody awesome watching it on the hill at Adelaide Oval. What an amazing stadium with fantastic atmosphere. Great game and thankful to come away with the win.
Best place to watch sport outside the MCG, Nico.
So the hill in particular, you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that, Luke. You might be able to speak to that, but I just reckon the Adelaide Oval is unbelievable.
Yeah, so I've done it all there now. I've sat top, right up the top, but we got smashed, so it wasn't really great. Sat level behind the goals, level sort of first, second row. Last year for Pendle's 350th, and then this on the hill. But I don't know, because this game was such a big game. The hill, I had the time of my life on the hill. And if you love going to local footy and watching local footy, having a few beers, and if you can take the standing, I reckon you got to get to the hill for a Collingwood, even Adelaide game as well. But just where it's 45,000 there, it's epic. So,
awesome.
Yeah, that's it for us.
Great.
I could have reeled off another 200, but
thanks for all those that got involved. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok. Absolutely everywhere. And speaking of getting involved, if you've just noticed, we've got some new merch that's just come out the last 24 hours. One of Luke's favourites, Oleg Markov, came to me straight away and said, all right, we've got to get something out for Leggy. So, you put some nice design works together there, Luke. And
I gave the ideas, but you did the hard work after that.
Just the behind-the-scenes stuff. It doesn't matter.
No, it's a quality design, and I've already bought a couple myself, so can't wait to hopefully be wearing it on the pod next episode, because I did order it yesterday, and I've already got the email, text message. It's been shipped.
That's how quick it can be when you get it. Absolutely.
Should be at home maybe tonight when I get home, if not tomorrow morning.
Is Leggy delivering it to you, mate?
You ordered that specific request in to make sure?
Yeah, we want Leggy speed, so hopefully Leggy will catch on to the design and hopefully give it a share.
For those that haven't seen the design yet, it's basically Oleg Markov, the top half, and instead of legs, he's got the Roadrunner legs. So it's pretty unique, I think.
And we needed it on the weekend. He brought some dash.
I thought, he only had a couple, 3 or 4 touches, but I thought he just had a real sort of impact just for a small amount of game time. But it might be where he ends up for the remainder of the year, is almost that perfect sub for late third, early fourth quarter, just to have a bit of an impact. So
it's why we couldn't take him out of that 23.
Yeah,
and he might not be in our best 6 defenders, but you've got to have someone that can have an impact like that so quickly. So came at the right time, I think, to have Markov on in that game. And look, I think Mitchell's expense, so be it. That's the way they wanted to do it. He wasn't having a great influence on the match anyway. So it was a bit puzzling when you first see it, but obviously in hindsight, not a bad choice, I think.
He was poor on the night, let's just say it. He would be the first person to probably recognise that himself, Tom. Obviously, Brownlow medalist getting subbed off doesn't really make sense, and I think on the telecast he looked pretty despondent about what had happened, and fair enough, but I think Fly will do his very best to reassure him that it was not his night, and Markov came on and played, as you said, 4 touches, I think, but the way that he played suited our game style at that point in the match, and it was the only way we're going to win, so well
just
done.
Quickly again on Oleg, I think Matthew Lloyd spoke about it on the footy show, but just once we got that lead again late in the game, it was just all of a sudden it was Collingwood were killing the game, and honestly, we do it the best out of anyone. It's not
No
luck.
question.
It's not luck, but the way we kill the game and stop the ball from getting out into space, and there was the one from Oleg where he's known for his pace and taking the game on, but he's like, he wasn't doing this at Gold Coast, and he's able to just stop the ball and keep it in tight and not let it get out, and do it in a way that's not going to give away a holding the ball free kick for dragging it in or anything like that. So it's like, that's the impact that Craig McRae has had on players like Oleg Markov. Those sort of best bottom 6 type players are playing the way that he has been coaching them, and it's leading us to victories like this. So
Let's get to guess the crowd then. Of course, we always like it when you get involved. Plenty of comments for our guess the crowd competition this week. Any margins to start with? Any 2-pointers?
yes, we had a couple, more than 2, I think.
That's
so.
great. Glad I've given you some time to prepare so you can get that ready. So
I shouldn't say this because I missed one last week and now I've forgotten who it was. So, but there was someone, and he tweeted me and sort of added me out. I completely forgot his name now. So, but shout out to you because you know who you are.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. It's really good.
We'll give you one next week. Jacob Sparks, Pies by 2. Michael Banfield, 2 points in a thriller. Grant Heidman, 2 points. Carrie Lackey, 2 points. And I think that's it. Oh, Zachy Green as well, Pies by 2. So a few celebrating the win
Now,
with the correct margin.
big crowd, of course. Adelaide Oval. Do you know what the final one ended up being? Do you remember?
47,965.
Nice.
I think. And our winner, Paula, 47,989.
Ooh, not a bad guess in the end, wasn't it? Very good. Better than Derek over here, who guessed about 66,000. He was doing really well there, wasn't he? Anyway, let's get to Paula then and see what she's got to say after that big win on Saturday night.
Hello?
Is this Paula?
Yes, it is.
It's Nicholas here from the Pies Nation podcast. Great to have you on the episode, and congratulations for being our Guess the Crowd competition winner for this
Thank
week.
you.
No, great to have you on. We'll get straight into it. Where were you watching from on Saturday night? We've just heard people in our comments be all around the world, really, listening or watching to the Pies produce a famous victory. What was your encounter for tonight?
I was at home with all of the doors in the house closed because I had 2 little boys asleep. So I think I might have woken my youngest up in that last quarter. But yep, I was at home watching it very nervously.
Could imagine.
Nice, Paul. Just Jack here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Always fascinated to hear our guests' Collingwood stories. Would you able to run us through how long you've been a Collingwood supporter and how that journey might have started?
Well, my dad was a Collingwood man. So his uncle was a Collingwood supporter, and then my dad was. My mum, when they got married, was originally a Bulldog supporter because she grew up in Footscray, and when we came along, it was sort of, we used to go and watch Collingwood, so she just sort of gradually fell in love with them. So I started out as a baby magpie, and I was sort of that generation that as a little kid I was a Buckley's Brigader, and then we moved up to captain's members, and then we became legends members, and 27 odd years now we've been legends members. So yeah, kind of a diehard.
Nice.
Hello, Paula. It's Luke. Thanks for coming on, and congratulations on the Guess the Crowd. You're very close. So you said you're a fan for 27 years and Buckley's Brigade, and you've been through many of the players. Sort of run us through sort of top 3, top 4 favourite players for the club.
Oh, of all time? Oh my goodness. I can't go past Peter Dacos. My father was a mad Dacos fan, so one of the first words that he taught me as a little girl was Dacos. So those were a couple of my first words. Yep, that and Go Pies. So Peter Dacos, Nathan Buckley, and probably like a Sav Rocker, because I'm a 90s child.
Brilliant, Paula. Marcus here. Now, just wanted to know a little bit more about your memories attached to famous Collingwood interstate wins. Obviously, the game against Port would be right up there, but are there any others that come to mind where you think we went on a plane, did a job, came home, and it was just absolutely amazing?
One that probably sticks out the most, I can't remember what year it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a final against West Coast
Yes.
over there in Perth. Pendles and Steele would have been young, sort of maybe like first couple of years in
Extra
there.
time.
Yeah, and it was extra think I was 18 or 19, and I was out with some girlfriends on Chapel Street, and we were sitting in the car listening to it, and I wouldn't let anyone get out of the car until it had all finished and knew what had happened. So, yeah, I was in the car park in those days behind Coles. We were going out to dinner with some friends, and I just made everyone sit in the car until the end of that game. And that one sort of sticks in my mind the most because it was all the young players that sort of stood up in those last couple of minutes of the extra time, and we managed to, roll over West Coast. That one probably is one of the ones that sticks out, and not interstate, but the first time that we beat Brisbane when they were really strong. It was at Marvel Stadium.
Oh.
That one sticks in my mind as well because we were sitting sort of on the wing at the Coventry end, and the Collingwood members was just chaotic. And it was one of those things that just sort of, I was only a young girl at the time, and I just remember everyone absolutely jumping up and down when the siren went, and you just sort of looked around and you just saw all of these people just ecstatic, like the greatest thing that had ever happened to them was us beating Brisbane that day. So those two probably stick out the most in my mind.
Absolutely brilliant. And now we also do need to know your methodology or your strategy about your prediction. Can you tell Lukey how you went about getting this right?
Well, I just sort of Googled how many the stadium held, and when they say sellout, it's never like at complete capacity. So I kind of went a couple of thousand off that, and I thought I had a look at what everyone else was guessing, and I kind of just tried to go something a bit different. So there wasn't any real strategy or method to my madness, but I just sort of thought, well, 50,000 the stadium holds, so probably give or take a couple thousand from that.
Because most people were sort of 49, 50 plus thousand, and you were one of the only few that were sort of around that 47,000 mark. So it was pretty easy to spot you. I thought.
Well, Google said that at 50, that's what Adelaide Oval holds. So I sort of, when I saw the 52s, I thought, well, it's not going to be close. No, it's not possible. So when they said sellout, even when they say sellout here, like they've said Friday night's a sellout, but there's always, it's never a capacity.
I don't know how that was not a sellout though. It was I don't know how many more people you could have fit.
Well, you couldn't fit any more at the hill?
No. They couldn't walk anywhere, so I don't know how they're going to fit 6,000. I think it does hold 53,500. So it was 47,985 or 47,965?
Something like that.
Because you're either 4 off or you're 24 off.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realise that.
Which is a very good effort. 47,965. So you're 24 off. Yeah. So still a very good effort.
Yeah, I just sort of took a stab in the dark with a random number at the end. I thought 47 something.
Very good.
That's a very solid effort, that's for sure. Before we let you go, Paula, a question for you. Obviously, it's been a long time Pies fan, which is fantastic. We're on a pretty good run at the moment. Us boys, we're playing some incredible football. A two-parter for you here. How does it compare to previous dominant seasons we've had during your time supporting the Pies? And do you think we can go all the way and claim that 16th flag?
Look, 2011... was probably, and 2010, but I feel like 2011 we were so dominant that year. It was great, but sort of the last 18 months have just been so much fun. Like going to the football it's just like so much fun, and you never know what you're going to get. And even sort of Saturday night, I thought at 3/4 time, I thought, well, this might just be beyond us tonight. And in that last quarter when Josh Dacos kicked that first goal, I sort of thought, oh, okay, maybe not. And then I should have known better. But yeah, it's been so fun, and it's been a great experience across. And last season, I didn't want the season to end because I was like, I've just enjoyed it so much. Like I didn't want it to finish yet. But this year, I really, really hope so. But I have been to every losing Collingwood grand final in the last 15 years. So I really would like to get to one that we actually win. So I kind of feel like it might be me, but every time that I go, we either draw or we lose it. So I'd love to get to one that we actually win.
Yeah. Jack just grimaced there when you mentioned that.
Breaks my heart every time I hear that. Paul has been a Legends member for 20-something years, she said. And, you know, that's the same story you hear with a lot of Collingwood supporters is that, you know, they've almost been to more losing grand finals than a lot of teams, other team supporters have seen their team play finals. So, yeah, It's a heartbreaking stat for sure.
No, that's all right. Paula, it's been great to have you on and to be a part of the podcast. Thanks for telling us a bit of your memories as a Pies fan, and hopefully we're all celebrating pretty hard by the end of the season.
Great. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, Paula.
Thanks, Paula.
There we go. That was Paula joining us there as part of Guess the Crowd. That could be you if you guessed the crowd closest, so keep an eye out for Luke's game day post every single week. Get your best guess in for the crowd, and if you're closest, that'll be you joining us as part of the pod. That was very nice there from Paula. One of our better ones this year, I reckon.
Very good conversationalist. Loved it.
Absolutely, Nico. It's always good to hear from people who've been members for a long time.
I've got to say, sorry, this was funny because when we started talking to Paula, what usually happens is when we're on YouTube is when we chat to him, we're on a white screen, and all you're going to see in the corner is Luke trying to work out
all sorts of like, Chuck, what do I do?
Trying to work out
sometimes they're like so easy to work out, and then other times I'm like, what? This one's going. I was like, I don't want to break it, and then I'm like, I'm half here listening, and finally
the weekend's catching up with you, mate.
Yeah, you boys have
voluntarily caught up with me. It's all right, mate.
Oh, all right. We'll end this pretty soon. Then we'll start with the VFL. Then our wrap up from the weekend. Interesting contest for the VFL Pies, but all good in the end, Marcus.
It was, Nico. We got over the top of the Sandringham Football Club. Slow start from the Pies, but did wrestle control by halftime in a bit of a dog of a day type affair down at AIA Stadium. We come away winners 64-48, and now just one position outside the top 10 in the VFL, the top 10. We love that. So anyway, a lot of notable performances, which I'll let Serge get to, and then we'll just duck back to myself just for some very recent news regarding some re-signings, Nico, that applies to some of our VFL and AFL players. So with no further ado, the Serge.
Awesome. Let's get to Serge then. In tough and slippery conditions, the Pies adapted better late in the game to the conditions. Not a great day for our big men. Very tight game until early in the last quarter. Pies kicked 4 goals to 2. Great games from Jack Ginnivan. 2 goals, 28 disposals, 5 tackles. McRae and Carmichael also good, 26 and 30 disposals each. Hustwaite, nice game as well, 23 touches, 4 tackles. Frampton, Ryan, Bianco also had plenty of the ball. The Pies had 10 more inside 50s from turnovers. Clearances were about even. And next week it's the Pies and the Blues, Vic Park, Saturday afternoon.
Huge, and I reckon I might get along to that. So there'll be plenty of talent on the park. And I actually watched this game because it was on Sunday at midday, and you just look at our team and there's so much depth, and it just reminds me of the Tigers not long ago when you used to watch their VFL games, which is when Fly coached them, funnily enough. Just talent all throughout the team, all throughout the park. So it's where you want to be. Also, just coming off some very recent news, as mentioned, is the re-signings of Bo McCreary, Johnny Noble, Mason Cox, Ash Johnson, Harvey Harrison, and Jacob Ryan, Nico.
Nice.
So those last two in particular playing quite a bit of VFL footy at the moment. And Ash is probably another one that, like Billy Frampton, is doing everything that he can. But amazing what a big win can do for a football club, boys. And I think it's a vote of confidence for the direction the club's going in. again, with all of these guys inking 2 or 3 year deals. And I think a particular shout out to Johnny Noble and Ash Johnson, both mid-year selections not long ago, and now they're bona fide.
And Josh Dacos on the verge of a big 6-year deal as well. We were hearing
Some
reports
memories.
about. So interesting, as long as we don't do what we did a few years ago. But anyway, that's okay. I'm sure we've learnt past that too.
And Coxie, 2 more.
Yes.
That's incredible considering.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we've spoken plenty about his story, but I'm almost at the point where I'm thinking maybe he's only got one more in him, and the vote of confidence for him to go. Here's 2 more. So hopefully he's still starring for us.
Well, he signed that 1-year add-on at the end of his last contract, so you've probably felt like he's in his 30s now. It's going to be 1-year contracts from here on out. So for the confidence of the footy department to go, here's 2 more, bang right off the table before the season even ends. It's pretty good to hear, especially for Mason Cox, and he can continue his journey in the black and white. So Carlton, was it
1:05 p.m. Saturday, Arvo, Vic Park.
Vic Park, it's going to be perfect. So after we beat them by 90 on Friday night, we can go watch them beat them by 100 on Saturday. Speaking of big games, VFLW as well. Huge clash for them. Grand final, looking to get our 2nd ever VFLW Premiership, which is, I think we'd be the first club to win multiple premierships in the VFLW competition as well. So that would be an awesome achievement if the girls can get the job done. We're playing Port Melbourne. Now, here's a little rant for you. Port Melbourne.
They're playing at Port's home ground.
ETU Stadium, which is Port Melbourne's home ground. That's where the grand final is. Yet we're playing them. And we're the higher ranked team.
Which professor has
Tell
made
me how
that
that
decision,
works.
Nick?
We go from top 10s in the VFL, grand finals in the VFLW.
What happened this week in the prelim as well? I think Essendon and Port Melbourne played in the prelim final. Was Essendon's home game at Port Melbourne.
Yeah, and Port Melbourne won by 30 points. That's ridiculous. We'll never understand that.
Please explain.
Anyway, let's hope we can get the job done. So that's on Sunday, 12:10 p.m. ETU
So it's
Stadium.
a genuinely cracking weekend of Collingwood football.
Yep.
Friday night into Saturday Arvo into Sunday Arvo.
Perfect.
So
All
hopefully
around.
we have some really nice weather.
Absolutely. Let's hope it's a nice one. Let's finish off a little bit of Carlton chat. Not that we want to talk too much about them. They're on a pretty good win streak, but so would you be if you've had to play West Coast. You can just tell. Sorry, I don't like them.
I'd love to talk about them.
Yeah, go on then, because I don't want to talk one more word about it. Go on.
No, I just wanted to talk about their injuries.
That's also one. I mean, you never want to see injuries from any team, but Walsh, Silvani, Cripps, we probably expect to come back in, but they've had a few issues.
And Chera, but I think those 2 guys are very much important to their confidence and momentum. Sam Walsh and Jack Silvani, again, not sure what he is, but he manages to get the job done from time to time. So, look, it'll be big. I think Chera and Cripps will come in rested and ready to fire. But, look, we'll see what happens on Friday night, Nico.
Have you got any thoughts about Carlton on Friday?
Well, I mean, they're on a hot streak, but they've been beaten some pretty easy prey.
Like, apart from Port, you probably
but Port
say.
rested half their
That's
team.
true.
So it's kind of, I feel like we're coming off the back of one of the fiercest games we've had all year, and they're probably coming off the back of a 4 or 5 games, soft sort of performances in a row, and it's going to be interesting how that matches up this Friday night. The hardness of us against
true.
them,
Soft.
the way they've been going about it. So, and it's generally going to be 95,000. About 6 weeks ago, it was sort of it's not going to be that big, but now they win this Friday night, they are well in the hunt for the top 8. I reckon we spoke before, but it's not the last round of the season. But if they do win this, I reckon they're getting into the 8. If they lose it, then I reckon they might just miss out.
Oh, it's a good thing they're not going to win then. Jack, your thoughts?
Yeah, I know it was against West Coast, Nico, and I know Harry Mackay's not playing either, which makes life a hell of a lot easier. But the potential of Darcy Moore's Charlie Curnow matchup is a bit of a mouth-watering one for me. Darcy Moore is just strange. Past couple of weeks, he's found himself playing a goalkeeper role when he had no right to be doing so, and he just sort of let Dixon on Saturday night go a fair few times, and there was a couple of goals that he kicked where he just wasn't even in the frame, and we're looking at him, what are you doing at the top of the square, mate? Get up there and push up on your player. We all know he's an exceptional player, though. He's probably been our top second best behind Nick Dacos this year, so I'm really, really got to have one eye on that matchup and to see, if Darcy goes back to what he did against Carlton earlier in the year, where he almost broke the record for the most interceptions set marks, or if he sort of tries to go for the more lockdown type defensive role. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. Charlie Curnow in really good form.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think with that Port game, there was so much chaos ball going in from the Port Adelaide forward half that the setup may not have been as accurate as it had been previous times without defensive structures. So we'll be keen to see what takes place on Friday night with that. What's your Monday headline then to wrap up with this Blues clash?
Glad you asked, Nico. Monday headline, Nick Dacos bounces back with 32 touches and 1 goal, and Ed Curnow can't keep up.
Can we believe we're saying that he's even going to bounce back after a game like that? But you're
Well,
right.
he said,
but you're right.
Like Lukey
100%.
says, he set the bar so
He
high
has,
for
yeah.
himself that, I mean, it
good
wasn't a
point.
bad game by any stretch. It just wasn't a 3-vote Nick Dacos game.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
And he needs to win the Brownlow. So
Go on, Luke.
We'll be singing the blues. Pies 50 plus.
Jeez,
Yeah,
I hope so.
great.
That'd be nice. All 3 Pies teams have huge wins.
Nice.
So
nice.
there's a premiership in there as well, which would be handy. So yeah, going to go for that one, Nico.
Now, do you want me to be realistic or do you want me to be dramatic?
You're both of the same thing with Carlton, isn't it?
With Carlton, it is, yeah. All right, I'll say what I said last time. 15 goal win. And Curnow will not kick more than a goal. Will be my
Jeez.
Monday headline.
If
Come on, boys.
Curtin doesn't kick a goal, then we probably will
We
win by
will,
15.
yeah, we
but
will, yeah.
I can't not see that happening.
Oh,
He's a special player.
Let's hope that's the case though on Friday night. Nonetheless, after what we've been able to produce last Saturday night, thanks, boys, for coming on. A very enjoyable pod after what took place in Adelaide.
Thanks, Jack, for getting through.
Yes, well done.
worries.
And
sorry,
Lukey.
sorry about my voice, everyone. It's pretty
Off to
terrible.
bed.
Longest one we've had for that long as well.
We made it long on purpose. We get
Survivor.
every inch out of you, that's for sure. But until next week, I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.